What's going on, guys? This is Big Worm 380, and I am going to be doing another beginner tutorial video here. I haven't done one of these in quite a while, but the reason I'm doing this is because a guy commented on my one of my YouTube videos, on the tutorial videos, BSW Magic Gaming. He asked if I would do a tutorial on the settings, because him and his friend were playing, and they were, some of the settings, I guess, were confusing them, which is understandable, because they're not. They do give you the little tips, they call them tool tips when you hold over them, but it still doesn't always make that much sense. So that's what we're gonna do in this video. We're gonna go over the settings to set up your own single player game, or say a dedicated server. Now if you guys want, I may do a separate video on how to set up a Nitrado server, because it's more or less the same thing, but it's a different interface, and a few of the settings have a little bit different name, and and then I can even get more in depth with the going into the expert mode and the game any files and all that stuff. But we're gonna do just for single player and like dedicated, or like if you do a single player and have somebody join you. So the very first thing I would do, we're gonna go into the option settings first. Your volume, that's all preference. The music on here is so damn loud sometimes, especially the title screen music. I go ahead and put it just below half. Master volume I leave up or turn up all the way, and then because your master volume is just controlling all these, so I just can put these where I want them. Inventory access sounds, I think that's on by default to leave that on. Disable menu music, I didn't know there was. Oh, I guess that's the menu music, the main menu. Okay, well, I'll leave that on. As far as the graphic stuff, I don't really mess with all this stuff a whole lot. I think this is just default settings on this stuff. What I do is I turn off motion blur. I believe that's on by default, or it used to be. I turn motion blur off. Disable menu transitions, I leave that on. I'm on an Xbox One X. It's only 1080p, so I don't have the HDR output. That's not going to work for mine, but I do have detailed graphics on. I think detailed graphics is on there anyway. But anyway, VSync mode, I don't have VSync monitor, so that's not applicable. Camera shake scale, so I guess that's when you're running, because that's a setting you can turn off or on with the camera shake. I don't know. See, I haven't messed with these a whole lot. Sensitivity, I turn mine up to about 3/4. I always play all my games with the Y inverted, where down is up and up is down. I don't know why. I think since GoldenEye 007 days, I've been playing like that. Melee camera animation. Okay, I don't know. Third person camera offset. See, I'm not real clear. Some of these are newer since I ever messed with these. The main reason I went into this is I would suggest turning off motion blur for sure. Floating names, if you're playing with a friend, or some friends, that's good to have on. Blood damage overlays, not sure if that's on by default, but I keep that on. First person riding, you can go ahead and check this, and then you control that in the game with your right shoulder button. Actually, I think you want to leave that off, otherwise it's all first-person writing. Status notifications, you can leave that on if you're running a server, like if you're running a server with other people that aren't in your tribe, or you're not going to be partied up on Xbox Live, then you probably don't want to, it doesn't matter if it's on or not, unless you have a bunch of people. Hide server info. I'm not really. Oh, that's whenever you press your start button, and you go into the pause menu, and there's the little box under the options where it shows a certain settings or whatever. You can hide that. I don't know why you would hide that, but this is between Celsius and Fahrenheit. I'm in the US, so it's Fahrenheit for me. Torpidity effect. So apparently you can, I guess, turn off getting knocked out, which is, I don't know. You could do that, if you want to do that, that's fine. I leave it on. I don't want to make the game too terribly easy. Chat show gamer tag, chat show tribe name. Oh, yeah, you want to allow crosshair, I think. I mean, some people want to be hardcore and not have it, but you have no reference of aim, and because there is drop on like arrows and stuff like that, I like it. I like to allow hit markers too, because you can waste a lot of arrows not knowing if you even did hit anything without the hit markers. Let's see. I leave the gamer tags off, because when a person creates a survivor, they create their game name. So you would have their gamer tag and their game name, their arc name that they chose, you know, which if you're running a server and maybe you want to know what gamer tag is which player in certain situations, you could do that, but you have the admin manager for that. So quick toggle item names. Yep. Leave that on. Show item selector button. I guess that's the little overlay when your mouse, like, showing. Yeah, leave that on. Play wheel click sound. I guess leave that on. Audio, gameplay, and then controller settings are here. That's pretty much it for this. I mean, a lot of this is personal preference too. Okay, so then you would go to host, and this is the same menu for if you're going to do a dedicated server or just a single player and somebody joins you, or just totally single player by yourself. So you would make sure you have whichever map you want selected up here. You need to ascend to unlock the center, I believe. I don't remember if you have to do it on Ragnarok or not, but you can admin cheat an ascension basically. So play single player, obviously that would just start you off by yourself, and if you let somebody come in and join you, they could join you and you could have, you know, but the only problem with the single player is you have the tether distance, and that's basically a barrier that you have to stay with so close to each other. And I've tried it before with my kids, and to me it sucks, but it's better than nothing. This is where you would run the dedicated server, and create procedural arc. You can play with that if you want. It takes forever for those to load up. To me, it's not worth it. The last time I tried to do one, I did it on my PC and made a couple videos with it, and they're neat maps because they're totally random, but the problem is it's real easy to get in there and mess with the settings and screw it all up where it's all fucked up looking, and you can't even play on it. And there weren't any obelisks. There's a lot of work to be done last time I checked it out. Alright, so let's get into the actual settings here. These are the settings that are going to affect your gameplay and everything in the game. Okay, so difficulty level. I always put this at 1.0. Okay, 1.0 should be 150 dinos, I think. It's the highest level of dinos for the level, or for the map. So, and all the maps I believe are on 150 now. Used to be, the island was only 120, and when they came out with the center, it was 150, but I believe they've corrected that. Now, if you go, we'll get back to that in just a little bit, before I get ahead of myself, because some of these settings work off of other settings also, and you'll see what I mean in a little bit. Alright, so dino damage, and by tooltips, I mean when you hover over one of these settings, it gives you a little tip of what it's about. So, this one's, you know, a lot of these are self-explanatory. Specifies a scaling factor for the damage dinosaurs deal with their attacks. So at 1.0 is the default for how much damage dinos deal. Now, I want to say this particular... I'm not sure if this affects tames. This, I think, has to do with wild dinos more. Or it may be tame dinos too, because once you tame the wild dino, then it probably has more melee to start off with. I'm not sure. I do know it has to do with wild dinos for sure. So be careful with that, because you don't want to, you know, depending on what you're going for, you may want the dinos harder to beat or more powerful, easier to kill you. Player damage. This scales how much damage you have, how much damage you do, you know, before an upgrade on your melee stat. So, you know, you want to one-shot kill everything, you can go in this box and change all these too, because the sliders only go up so high. I think these only go up to 3. Yeah. And we'll leave that at 1. Alright, structure damage. Specifies a scaling factor for the damage structures deal with their attacks, like spiked walls. You put spike walls down, you know, they're gonna... I'm not sure what the default setting is. We're gonna look at that in a minute. You can actually turn off whether spike walls damage dinos or not. I believe it's wild dinos, but you know, anyway. So this just, the higher the number on that, the more damage they do. Player resistance, scales, the higher values decrease the resistance and increase damage. So in other words, if you raise this above 1, your player is going to take more damage. Okay? Because the higher value decreases the resistance. That's another thing about these settings, the way they're worded. Sometimes they're a little confusing and you may accidentally go the wrong way with them. I did that on my dedicated, the Xbox PvP server with the fuel consumption multiplier. I'll explain that in a little bit too. I learned a lot about that one and I didn't realize that affects more than just the rate of how slow it burns or how fast. Dino resistance specifies the scaling factor for the resistance to damage dinosaurs receive when attacked. So in other words, higher values decrease resistance and increase. So this is the same thing as the player, but this is for your dinos. The higher the number, the more damage they'll take, basically. You know, and that's one of them ones that, you know, you would think it'd be the opposite of that. Higher number, you got more resistance. No, it's the opposite. So, because it scales the damage, not the resistance. Structure resistance, same thing. Higher value decreases resistance, increasing damage per attack. All right, this is an important one. Let me get this in the center. All right, XP multiplier. This is an important one. This is one of the main settings. This and taming speed is one of the main reasons that I don't play official servers. I just don't have time. Nothing against officials, and if people have time, you know, I'd love to be able to play officials. I just cannot do it. I don't have the time to put into it because it takes so long to level up and tame stuff and whatever. So XP multiplier. Now you'll notice on this it says multiplier. Just a rule of thumb, most of these settings, if they say multiplier, if you go up, then it's going to increase whatever, you know, it's going to speed up whatever. If it's a speed that you're messing with, a tame speed or a XP, an experience points speed, then if it's a multiplier setting and you go up on it, it's going to speed it up. And that's what this does. So 1.0 is the default. That's official server speed. And that's not what you want. If I were you, I would go anywhere between like 6 or 8. You know, and you can go as high as you want, really. I mean, on my PVE servers that I've rented for PC, it's on like, I think it's on like 10. If I'm not mistaken. It's 8 or 10, but I think that's a pretty good speed. You get through the lower levels pretty quick, and you're not taking forever to, you know, just do regular stuff. Taming speed's the same thing. I would go between 6 and 10 on taming speed. I mean, some servers, some people like instant tame, where you give them one piece of raw regular meat and they tame on it, and that's fine. You know, that's what you want. I'm not sure what you need to put it on for that, but I know. Because I still like to play the game and go through the taming process and all that, but I don't have 8 hours to tame a freaking Pteranodon. Structure damage repair cooldown. Every time you get a structure take damage from, say, a dino or other players, there's a cooldown period before you can repair it. And this is in seconds, so it's 3 minutes before you can repair, say, a wall or something somebody tried to, you know, break into and whatever. Dino turret damage. Higher numbers increase by percentage of the damage turrets deal to dinosaurs. This is one of those ones I leave at default. If I'm playing single player, it's not going to matter anyway. Well, I guess it would if you're going to set it up for wild dinos, but you know, it would make it where you wouldn't have to put as many turrets up if you did. I've never put auto turrets up playing single player though anyway, or any kind of PvP or PvE. I mean. Dino harvesting damage. Higher numbers increase the damage dinosaurs deal to harvestable items. Higher numbers mean faster resource collection. Now, this doesn't mean that they collect more. It just means it takes less hits to, you know, to gather. If you got a beaver and he can go up and hit a tree one time, and he'll get as much as he would have hitting it 5 times as if this was on 1.0. You know. Harvest amount. This is what affects how much you get when you're harvesting things. So I usually put harvest on about 3, anywhere from 3 to 10, really. This is affected by if you have. This is what I was saying earlier about settings working off of each other. we're going to look at the player settings that you can modify. If you change any of the player stats that you like, the points you get per level, and say a lot of people like a lot of weight on their characters. If you put a lot of weight, then go ahead and bump this up to 10. But if you keep the stats default, I'd say about 3 is pretty good. Because what's going to happen is if you put the harvest amount on 10 and don't change the stats where you can give yourself a lot of extra weight than normal, then you're going to go up and hit one tree and you're going to be encumbered. And you won't be able to, you're not going to be able to use the harvest amount multiplier that you put anyway. So higher harvest amount, this is a multiplier. The higher you go with that number, the more you're going to get for each resource. You go up and hit a rock, completely destroy a big rock, you're going to get way more stone. You're going to get, if it's on 3, you're going to get 3 times the amount of stone you would have got if it was on 1. Player character water drain and food drain, and stamina, and these 3 right here work all the same. The higher value causes it to happen faster. It is a multiplier, and I think that's what's confusing sometimes. It's this one actually is labeled pretty good. The food drain, the higher the number, the food drain goes faster. So I wouldn't go up with this at all. If anything, I'd be going down with it a little on food and water for your players. Dinos aren't too bad. Dino, player stamina, player food, dino food. Okay, yeah, all that. Those are all 4 the same. Health recovery and player health recovery for players and dinos. Okay, the higher values cause you to heal faster. So again, unless you're wanting more of a challenge, I would leave this at 1.0, or you could bump it up just a little bit. And when you're out and say you get attacked by a raptor, but you kill it before it kills you, and your health is down, the higher you put this number, the faster it'll recover your health over time. Same thing for this one for the dinos. Player harvesting damage. This is, I usually put this on 3, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, I think I put this on 3 usually. And you're doing 3 times the damage to, say, a tree or a rock. So you don't have to sit there or actually, you know what? I don't think I changed this one. There's another setting that I do change. The higher this number is, though, the higher you'll destroy a resource, and again, it's not gonna affect the amount you get. Instead of hitting a tree 5 or 6 times and getting 30 wood, you'll hit it once or twice and get 30 wood. It just speeds that whole thing up. All right, dino count. This affects the numbers of dinos that are spawned in over the entire map that you're playing on. I would not mess with this at all. There's plenty of dinos. If you want to lower it below 1, I don't know why you do that, but maybe you might want to do that. The best thing to do is not mess with the dino count, because when you raise it, then the game tries to spawn in too many dinos. It'll cause lag, could cause the server to just crash and not even work. This is one of those settings I would not even mess with. The best thing to do is if you're having issues with numbers of dinos, like sometimes over time, like in a river, the Spinos will get killed eventually, and then instead of Spinos spawning in, you'll have just a river full with hundreds of fish that, there shouldn't be that many fish. Best thing to do is just learn how to do the admin command and destroy the wild dinos. And that'll wipe the entire map, and it'll just respawn in like it's supposed to be, in normal numbers. And if you're running a dedicated server, you might want to do that once a week, or something like that. Allow third-person camera. If you're playing PvE, for sure, go ahead and check it. I don't ever use it, but some people might want to, and if it's PvE, why not? If it's PvP, that's up to you. I mean, it gives a person an advantage to go into that third-person camera because they can look around corners if they're trying to raid you, and and see look around corners basically. But at the same time, you have the same ability. So, like I said, that's personal preference. Enable global voice chat. I wouldn't do this. I've tried to do this since we're talking about Xbox right now. On PC, I use Discord chat, which works really well, and on Xbox, I use Xbox Live chat. If you're not using that, then you just need to text, because the built-in chat for Ark sucks. It's horrible. It sounds like shit. You can't hardly understand people unless they've improved it. I tried it a long time ago, and because most people are partied up in Xbox Live anyway and use that to chat, I don't think they put a whole lot of effort into it. Most developers don't, so I wouldn't even bother with it. I'd leave that off. Proximity text chat. There's two options when you text chat on the game already. That's global, and then you can do tribe chat. So if you don't want people seeing, if you just want your tribe seeing it or whatever, you can just do tribe chat. I don't really see the point in the setting in any situation. Notify player left. I leave that off. I mean, you could turn it on, either or. It just tells you when somebody has already joined the server and then they leave. It'll say, Big Worm 380 left the server. If you want that, put it on. Notify player joined. I do always have that on, just, because it's nice to know when somebody comes into the server, especially when you're running the server and you want to know when new people come on. You can kind of learn the names of the people on the server that way. Admin logging. This just logs admin commands, basically. You can have that on if you want. I don't know why you would, and I don't know if it's even working actually on Xbox. Not really sure. Enable crosshair. I always do the crosshair. This is one of those things some people might, oh yeah, that makes it too easy. Well, if you don't like it, don't use it. I mean, I want to know. It's hard enough to aim with the crosshair because you have drop on like arrows and stuff like that. I would just soon have the crosshair. Force no HUD. That's something people can do in their settings if that's what they prefer. I wouldn't force it on the server. Especially if you're trying to get people to join your server, that's kind of one of those personal preference settings that, like, I would hate it. I wouldn't play on a server that had that forced, so I leave it off. Disable loot crates. I don't know why you would do that. This is the loot crates, like the underwater loot crates and the cave loot crates. Well, I don't know why you would disable those, but you can. Hardcore mode. If you check this, you're crazy. Every time you die, you reset to level 1. So if you make it to level 60 without dying and then you die, you have to start over at level 1. I've never done that. I don't think I will. PvE mode. If you check this, it disables PvP and enables PvE. What that does is it makes it where you can't you can't kill each other. You can't kill each other's dinos. You can't destroy each other's bases and shit. It's basically offline raid protection on all the time, whether you're on or not. It's PvE mode. Shouldn't be an issue. Even though people find a way to screw people over, they'll kite gigas into their base and get them aggroed on their tames, and then their base gets destroyed that way. But assholes always find a way. Disable friendly fire. This is if you're playing PvE. Yeah, I mean, unless it's kind of a. I usually turn this off if I'm playing PvE. I mean, if you're playing PvE, you're not supposed to be. You can't hurt each other. You're not supposed to be able to hurt each other. So, I would leave it off in a PvE situation for sure. And this is friendly fire. This just means tribe. This doesn't mean other people. So if you have a game, if you got a PvP server set up and you have disable friendly fire, that doesn't mean you can't shoot other tribes. That just means you can't shoot your own dinos and players. Show map player location. I always turn this on when I play. This just means when you bring up your map, it'll show the little thumbtack, about where you're at, so you can kind of tell people where you are. If you're on a new map, this is a no-brainer. I mean, you got to know where you're at. No survivor. All these download ones, tribute downloads, disables downloading items, dinos, or characters from other servers. If you've got stuff clustered, then you may not want to have. You don't want to have this because then you won't be able to transfer to the other server. Now, if you have your own personal server, you may want to have this checked because that would force new players coming in, people that you may not know. If you have a public server set up, it'll force them to come in and start from scratch. Otherwise, they could admin command spawn in all kinds of ascendant gear and crazy ass dinosaurs and then bring them onto your map and screw everything up. So it just depends on what you got going on. This is, again, personal preference. If you're playing by yourself or with just some friends and y'all are just PvEing against the game, just a group, shit, leave all this unchecked and y'all can all bring in whatever you want and do whatever. Maximum difficulty. I always click that. Like I said, I think all the maps are up to 150 now. Not sure, though. That way it forces max dinosaur level to 150 regardless of the map. Enable PvP Gamma. If you're playing PvP, this just allows the player to go into their menu and turn up the Gamma at nighttime. You know, it just makes where you can see at night is all it is. So that's up to you. Use single player settings. Turn that shit off. As soon as you get into this new settings, turn that off, because every other setting that you change in regards to, I don't know what all that does, to be honest. I've looked it up before, but I can't ever remember because some of the settings are just, I don't know. They're not even what I would use anyway, but they'll be, say it makes XP 2 times, you know, single player settings. Then that means if I put it on 3 times XP, then it would actually be 6 times, because it's going to be 3 times that I put in, 3 times the 2 times that the single player settings do. So anyway, just to keep it simple, I turn all this shit, I turn this off, the single player settings deal, and then that way I know exactly what I'm getting as far as my settings. Because if you use the Dododex app and you have single player settings on, unless you know what that does to your tame speed, and then you change the tame speed up top that we changed earlier, I don't know what it's going to be. You're not even going to know. Use the corpse locator. This is handy. When you die, this is the thing that shoots the light up in the air where your body is, and only you can see it. Your tribe mates can't even see it, which that does kind of suck. I wish there was an option to make that where they could. But yeah, I would definitely have that on. It's on by default, I believe. Disable structure placement collision. This makes building in Ark a hell of a lot easier than it used to be. This more or less makes building, at least as far as the act of building, like S Plus on PC, the S Plus mod. There's no structure collision. You can build into walls. You know, if say there's just like say you've got one more foundation you need to put to finish your base, but the ground's just a little too high where it's sloping up. Well, this eliminates that. You can go ahead and place that last foundation, and that way you don't have a goofy corner on your building. So I would definitely click that. Allow multiple platform floors. Allows players to construct bases with multiple levels of floors on platform saddles. That's personal preference. I'm not a huge platform saddle base building guy. I mean, if that's what you're gonna be doing, go for it. I mean, I don't know. Allow unlimited respecs. This is a big one. Used to be on the mind wipe tonics, which is what you take when you want to reset your character stats. It gives you all your engram points back and puts you back at level 1, but you still, if you're level 76, you've got 76 points to put into your character right then. You don't restart over and have to level up. You just, it puts all your stats that you changed back to, 100 each default. That way, if you screwed up and put too much, health into your character and you wish you to put more weight or something like that, then you can redo your stats. And then, but the only bad thing is you have to relearn all your engrams in the menu, and that takes a minute. But I would definitely check this. Make sure you do this before you max out your character level. If you max out your character level at 100 and then you turn this on, it's too late. You're going to have to go in and add levels, and I don't even think you can do that just on single player. Not on Xbox, you can't. So make sure that's on. You can always turn it off, but make sure it's on to begin with. Disable dino taming. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to disable dino taming on a game that's based around taming dinos. That's weird. They do have the no tame servers on official, so I guess they want you to be able to have the ability to do that, but I wouldn't do it. Disable dino riding. Yeah, I'm not doing that either. So that's it for the general settings. Let's go to the advanced settings. Allow PvE timer. Allow switching from PvE to PvP mode at specified in-game times. That's what it is. It's basically lets you set up a timer for the PvE, and then once the timer is at a certain time, it goes to PvP. That's that's nice. I'd like to set that up on my PvP server actually, but it's not. That's the thing. It's not PvE to PvP. It's just turning ORP on and off. That's two different things. Allow PvE to use system time. You gotta have this checked for this to work, and then allow switching at real world server side times. It's just using wherever the server's located, it'll be based on that time zone, I guess. Prevent tribe alliances. This is something you might do on, this is more of a PvP thing, I would think. I don't know why this would really matter in PvE, and I mean, I don't know. There's reasons for these settings, I know, and it's because people play games and whatever. But you can either make it where people can make alliances or not with this setting. Check it for yes, or prevent it with a check, and then leave it blank if you want people to be able to align. Allow PvE tribe war. That's pretty self-explanatory. Allow tribes on PvP to declare war and fight one another at specified times. PvE allow tribe war cancel. This just cancels this. Yeah, it lets them cancel a war that's already been agreed upon before it started. Disable PvE gamma. This is the same as the other one. This just, if you disable it, then people can't adjust their gamma on their screen, so if they're running around at night, they're just in the dark. Allow cave building PvE. I always do that. Why not? It's PvE. Let people build. Allow flyer carry in PvE. Definitely. If you have this disabled, if this is disabled, then you can't carry your tribe mates around with say an Argent or Pterodon or whatever. You can't carry them, which sucks ass. And then you also can't pick up dinosaurs, wild dinos. And when you can't pick up wild dinos, that means if you have a Quetzal and you want to tame a Therizino in a trap, you have to build the trap near the Therizino and run it into the trap out and wherever it's at. Whereas if this is checked, then you can pick that same Therizino up and fly it back to your base where it's safe to tame it. So if it's PvE, that's on for sure. Enable extra structure prevention volumes. Use this to completely disable building in specific resource-rich areas, in particular set up on the island around major mountains. So I don't know exactly. I mean, obviously it mentions the mountain area for the metal and obsidian and all that. I don't know. I mean, I usually put that on just because I don't like people blocking resources, but I don't know how well that works on the other maps. So, I mean, I'd put it on. Disable structure decay in PvE. That just means that by default, if say somebody gets on your server and they build something and they don't get on for 7 days or more, their shit decays and just destroys itself. I would leave this on if you're using a public server or making a public server. If it's just you and some close friends that you know are going to be playing, but whatever, maybe somebody goes on vacation for a week, you don't want to have this shit on, they come back and all their stuff's gone. So it just depends on the situation whether you want to use that. Disable dino decay. Same thing. It's 7 days with this off, or with this on rather. It's 7 days, and that same person that lost their base to the structure decay, all their dinos, they wouldn't own them anymore. They would be up for anybody to walk up and just claim. So again, it just depends on the situation, what you're doing, and who's playing with you for these two, I think. Structure decay period and dino decay period time. These are sliders that affect how long this happens. So, affects the length of time the player or tribe can remain inactive before their structure can be demolished by others. So I would assume it doesn't say. See, this is one of those ones. I've never messed with this slider before or changed this number, and it's not really clear. Do I go up to increase the time? Like I would think. I would say move it to the left or the right and increase the number to increase the time. There again, you'd have to play with it and see, because I really don't know. Auto PvE start time in seconds. This is the time in seconds at which the game will start. Switch to PvE. Blah blah blah. Okay, yeah, this is getting into the PvE timer, and yeah, I don't know how that works. I don't know what you would set this to. I'm not really sure, to be honest. Because you'd have to figure out in seconds what time, but I'm wondering how do you set what day, and does the time start at midnight on Monday, and you go seconds from that, and I don't know. So I've never used that, and I don't ever plan to really. So it's just easier to turn ORP off if you're running PvP and you want to go PvE. I mean, I don't know. Prevent diseases. Okay, if you prevent diseases, then that means you can't ever get like swamp fever or anything like that ever. I usually don't turn that on. I usually put non-permanent diseases. That way, if somebody dies, they'll lose the disease. Otherwise, if you have that unchecked, from what I understand, say you get swamp fever, unless you make the lesser antidote to get rid of it, you'll always have it. And, you know, it can be a pain in the ass, but, you know, if you don't want to even deal with it, just prevent diseases. Just check both them. Force allow cave flyers. I always do this on PvE because, again, it's PvE, why not? This means that you can fly into caves like on the center. You can fly into the lava cave and check all those red loot crates and get all the sweet-ass gear without actually having to take all day and all kinds of gear and people to go in there, or you die because there's just shit everywhere to kill you. You can fly through. Otherwise, what happens is as soon as you fly down into the entrance of that and you get to down to the bottom opening and where the long bridge starts, you automatically get dismounted from your flyer. So this allows you to fly in caves that you're not normally supposed to. PvP dino decay. So yeah, set true to prevent dinosaurs from decaying while offline raiding prevention is active. So if you have ORP turned on and this checked, then your dinos won't decay during that time. I don't know. Seems to me if you're on a PvP server, you should be on often enough where your dinos don't ever get close to decaying anyway, unless you've quit the server. Override structure platform prevention. If checked, turrets and spikes can be built and operate on platform saddles. They changed it a long time ago because people were building these war quetzals and had turrets and shit and plant turrets all over them, and they made it where you couldn't do that. So if you check this, then you can put turrets and plant species and stuff like that on your you can build a little mobile flying fucking battle station basically and take it into battle. I don't have a problem with it. The servers I run have this. We can do this. Why not? I mean, it's not like it's official, and it's not tribes on the servers that I'm running that it's that big of a deal. Offline raid protection. This just means if you have a tribe and you're playing PvP, okay, and if this is checked, you have this on, that means if a tribe, all the tribe members in a tribe log out after, I think the default is like 13 or 15 minutes, then the offline raid protection kicks in for that tribe, and you can't kill their tames, you cannot, you can't destroy their structures or anything. So that it just prevents all the bullshit from official servers where people just go around breaking into bases of people that are offline instead of actually PvPing and fighting. So, offline raid protection, logging off period. Okay, so this is how long a tribe needs to be offline before offline raiding protection enables. This is set to 0.01, and I know by default on the servers that I'm running, it's like 13 to 15 minutes. So if 0.01 is 13 to 15 minutes, before you adjust this setting, I would go ahead and turn it on and get somebody from another tribe, you know, to build something and have them log off and see what the time limit is, because you could end up setting this shit for like 8 days and not even realize it. Time period which dying to the same team again will trigger. What the hell? I don't know what that is. It has something to do with when you're fighting, when another tribe keeps killing you, it will trigger the INC PvP respawn interval multiplier. I don't know what INC is standing for there. I don't know. Additional respawn time when killed by a team in PvP. I honestly don't know what these settings are. I've never messed with these. I don't. These are settings even if you're running a PvP server. I just kind of leave these default, honestly. I mean, the main setting on PvP that I found that you may want to adjust the time on is the offline raid protection, because what happens is, like I turn the ORP on or off on the weekends, and it's on all week. So everybody knows come the weekend time, it's time to go break into people's shit when they're off. Well, a lot of people are on, and you know, say a big tribe goes after a 1 or 2 man tribe's base and they want to wreck it. Well, during the week, if that happens, when ORP is on, the offline raid protection is on, then the small tribe will just log off, and hopefully, you know, hopefully they can't get to their good shit within 15 minutes, and then the ORP kicks on. So if you have ORP on, it's almost, you may have to bump that time up where it should protect people from getting their shit broke into, but if you start getting attacked, you shouldn't be able to use it to your advantage to just log off, and, you know, that's being a pussy, I think. Because they're going to raid you anyway. You might as well stay and fight and try, you know, rather than do that. So the ORP time setting is the main one that I think if you have a PvP server that you need to worry about. Disable imprint dino buff. If checked, the damage and resistance buff on player characters who imprints a baby dino is disabled. I don't know why you would do that. You get a buff on your players, the damage, your melee, and then your health. So I don't know why you would do that. I'd leave that on. I mean, I guess some people might want to do that. Allow anyone to imprint cuddle. When you're breeding dinos, whatever the time limit or the time you have set up is, it's going to want care. It's gonna say baby whatever wants care in an hour or whatever the time is, and that means you're gonna have to do one of two things. You're gonna have to take it on a walk, which means just have it follow you around, and then it'll do the imprint after a little while. Or it's going to want to cuddle. You just hit the Y button on Xbox or whatever it is on the computer, and you get the imprint percentage. Or it's going to want a certain kind of kibble. So hopefully you have the kibble, and then you just go get it and feed it. Now, normally when a person sets an egg down and then that egg hatches, as soon as it hatches, somebody has to imprint on it, which basically you're claiming that baby. So if I claim a baby, somebody else in my tribe without this on, if this is off like default, nobody else in my tribe can come over and do the imprinting throughout the maturing of that baby. Which, if you're raising a Giga or a Quetzal or, you know, really anything, depending on how fast your maturation speeds are, that could be a problem, because not everybody has, you know, days to stay up and keep getting up and going back to sleep and imprinting on a dino. So this just allows your tribe to help you out get a full imprint on a breed. So I would leave that on. All right, now the poop interval. This is an important one. I would put this this is on 1.0 by default. I accidentally changed that to 0.1. I leave this usually. I'll put it on 1.5 or 2 maybe. I mean, I wouldn't lower it. The reason why is if you're out and about by yourself and you don't have, if you're playing single player or you're on, but none of your tribe mates are, and you get actually stuck in the map, you can eat your poop and kill yourself to get out of that spot. Now, the thing is, this is one where you have to raise it. It says the higher numbers increase by percentage how frequently characters can poop. So 1.0 is the default. Higher than 1, you poop more often. Egg lay interval. This one's important. I always put my egg lay interval on 0.2. This is a multiplier. And remember, by common sense, or maybe just the way I think, I originally, when I first started playing Ark and messing with these settings, I thought, oh, egg lay interval. That has to do with the time in between the egg lays, which it does. And so I bumped it up to like 5.0, thinking higher number the faster, but it's not. You're not affecting the speed that how fast the egg gets laid. You're affecting how long the time is between the egg lays. So you want it below 1.0 to speed it up faster than default. So in other words, it says higher numbers increase by percentage the time between eggs spawning or being laid. So I put that at 0.2, and you get some eggs going pretty fast. That way you can get your, you don't have to have 10,000 of each dino to get a good egg farm going. Mating interval multiplier. Lower numbers decrease on percentage the interval between which dinosaurs can mate. Example, 0.5 allows dinosaurs to mate 50% sooner. So I also keep this on like 0.1 because some of these times are ridiculous. You'll have only two breeder dinos and you breed them and they can't breed again for like 4 or 5 hours sometimes. So I put that down to 0.1 and then it's a lot faster in between the females being ready to go again. Egg hatch speed multiplier. This is a multiplier, and baby mature speed is a multiplier as well. So in other words, these are going to go up to increase the speed at which an egg hatches or the baby matures. I think if you're playing PvE, I would put it on at least 10. That's just my personal opinion. It's, you know, and I've got it on 10 on my PvP server that I'm running. So 10's pretty good. If you want it super fast, put it on 30 or 40. You know, just try it, play with it, see. And if you get the Dododex app, you can put those settings in, those speeds, before you even change anything, and it'll tell you exactly how long. Just bear in mind, if you put it on, you know, 40.0 on the egg hatch speed, but you're looking at gigas, that's going to speed up a giga quite a bit, but then that's going to almost be insta-hatch on, say, a Pteranodon or something like that. Smaller dinos take less time to hatch, and they take less time to mature. So you want to keep in mind, you don't want to just be looking at the biggest dinosaurs that take the longest time, like your wyverns and your gigas, because, you know, if you get them super fast, then your other ones are going to be like instant, and you may not be ready for that. So, or maybe that's what you want, I don't know. All right, harvest health settings. Okay, I'm not going to read that paragraph, it tells you exactly what I'm fixing to say. Harvest health means this is how many times you got to hit something to make it, you know, destroy, like a tree or a rock or whatever. I always put this setting on 0.2. That's always, I don't know, I just tried it and it works good. You can hit a rock or a tree once or twice and it's going to destroy, and again, you're still going to get all the resources you would have if you had it on 1.0. It just speeds up gathering. You usually gather shit faster. You don't have to sit there and hit a tree 10 times to get, you know, the same amount of wood. You can do it in 2 hits. Again, this is one of the ones that plays off of, you know, the higher melee you have, the more resources you're going to get. The higher quality tools you have, the more resources you're going to get. The more weight you have, the more you might want to have the harvest multiplier up. And then if you have this off, I mean, so all of it plays off of each other. So you want to kind of, it may take some balancing, because if you go way super high up on the, if you go way super high up on your harvest and your weight's not real high for your character, then you probably don't want this at 0.2. You may want this at 0.8 or just 1.0. That way you can go to a tree and hit it a few times and then watch your weight go up, and then the tree may not even be gone yet, but you're already full. You know, just depends. You got to play with it. Resource respawn multiplier, period. This is another very important one that I like to use. I put this one on 0.2 as well. What this does, this is a multiplier that affects the time. If I go outside my base and there's some metal nodes that you know, I didn't build too close to and they keep respawning, this is what affects the time that they respawn, okay? Lower values cause nodes to respawn more frequently. So instead of 1.0, you lower it to make them spawn in quicker. You can go outside your base and run around if you've got a few metal nodes on an Anki and hit all those metal nodes, and by the time you circle your base, they should be spawning back in just about on 0.2. Makes it nice when you're in a map and you're not in maybe not the greatest area as far as, you know, shit that's around, and that way you can safely get, you know, quite a bit of resources without having to travel all over the map and worry about getting killed. Baby cuddle interval multiplier. Okay, this is how often babies want to cuddle. Okay, I don't know all the different settings for I can tell you this, if you want your baby mature speed on 10.0, you need to have your cuddle interval multiplier at about 0.25 to 0.3, and that will get you 100% imprint or very close to it. But it'll put the imprints at about an hour, 2 hours apart, 1 to 2 hours apart, depending on what the dino is. And that's those settings together are a pain in the ass. In other words, you can't increase your speed of your tame or your mature speed for your when you're breeding. Your baby where'd it go? Well, we'll get to it in a minute, and I'll explain it a little better. Anyway, this just affects the time. Like, I know what I'm going to put the mature speed on, so what I would put this on is 0.2. Cuddle grace period multiplier. I mean, unless you know you're totally fucked up and can't keep track of. I mean, set an alarm. I mean, this just you lose quality on the ability to cuddle. You lose the imprinting quality if you take too long to get to the baby after its timer runs out and it's ready to cuddle or eat or whatever. So, and you still got time. I mean, you got time to go in and make some kibble and get back to it, and it's fine. This is like if you're going to be 30 or 40 minutes late, you know. And these imprinting stat scale multiplier, I leave that at 1. I mean, unless you just want some crazy ass, you know, imprinting bonuses, and that's just personal preference. Okay, day cycle speed. I usually leave the day cycle speed. That's just the time for the entire day. Okay, and if you go lower, it slows it down. If you go higher, it speeds it up. I usually put daytime speed at 0.5, and I'll put nighttime speed at 4.0. That means the daytime is twice as long, and the nights are go by 4 times faster, because fuck the dark. Spoiling time. This is your global spoiling time for anything. This is meat in your inventory, your bag on the ground after you die, you know, anything like that. Anything you kill, it'll last longer and before it spoils if this is above the default. Default is on 0 here, but like for instance, prime meat, it's only like 2 or 3 minutes, I think, after you harvest it. I usually put this on 1.5, and you've got like 12 to 14 minutes on prime meat in your inventory. That gives you a little time to, if you've got something knocked out on the ground and you're starve taming it, it gives you plenty of time to go wait till it's about 10 minutes till that animal's ready to eat and tame, and then you can go get your prime and fill it up, and you know you've got it. It's going to tame. You don't have to keep making 40 trips because the prime doesn't last. Let's see. Item decomposition time. If you do this, if you put spoiling time, if you do this covers everything. If you don't want everything to have that 1.5 factor, then you can go through each one of these and set them separately. And I think, and if you have this at 1.5 and then you adjust these, it's going to multiply off the other one. So, you know, I just do 1.5 on the one and call it good. No resource radius players. Multiplier that influences how far away from characters resources will regrow or respawn. This is a multiplier, so I'd assume the higher the number, the further away it would have to be for shit to regrow, because you know if you build, if you clear out an area and you build there, the shit doesn't respawn back in. You know, right by your base. So I would assume that if you drop this below 0, depending on what you put it on, that would shrink the radius and more shit would regrow closer to your base. I don't ever mess with that. I just usually build my base. I find an area where I can get, you know, depending on what resources I'm wanting, I'll find an area and I'll build my base kind of away from it, far enough where I know it's going to respawn what I want. I mean, I'm not talking about trees. I'm talking about like metal nodes and things like that. You don't want to build so close that you don't respawn those. So I don't usually mess with this. You don't want to go too low, I wouldn't think, because then you're going to end up having trees and shit spawning in your base, you know, and you don't want that. No resource radius structures. Multiplier that influences how far away. What? Oh, that just means. Oh, okay. Well, there's a player and a structure one for that. Crop growth speed. This is a multiplier. Higher numbers increase the growth of crops. I usually put this on 3.0. You can put it on whatever you want. Try it, and maybe you pick the shit, and then it just instantly fills back up. I don't know. I don't see the reason to do that, to have it instant, because if you pick a full crop plot of whatever, it's going to be like 100, and I think 150 on vegetables by default. I think. And, I mean, why do you need 150 instantly? They're just going to start spoiling, you know, before you use the other ones. So here's all your stats that you can manipulate. Wild dino stats per level. You know, they got the default levels on the stats, or the default stats, basically. And this will just increase the levels of the wild dinos for the different stats that you would find. Okay? Tame dino stats per level. This is what the... after you've tamed a dino and you level it up each time, this is what it goes up by. So in other words, if, say, health goes up by 10 points, that's what 0.2 means. And so if you were to put this on 2.0, it would go up 100 points each time. Okay? You know, it's just increasing how many points go into each stat every time you level that stat up. Tame dinos add per level. Wait a minute. Tame dino stats per level. You know, I don't ever mess with these very well. I mess with this. Tame dinos. Okay, this is the one I was just explaining. What is this one? Multiplier that changes the amount of food gained by tamed dinos as a percentage of the default setting. Oh, I got it. This is the wild stat settings, okay? And then when you tame it, this is what they get. This is how much, you know, basically, because you get the tame bonus, you know, depending on how efficient the tame was. This affects that. Okay, then the tame dinos add per level. That's the one I thought I was looking at a minute ago. After the dinos tame and you level it up, this is what, you know, adds more points per level. So this would make it where, you know, you could put, like, if you wanted to put weight on 10 times, you would get 10 times as many points in that stat. And, you know, you could have a super weight carrying whatever, or damage or speed, you know, or whatever. Tame dino stats affinity. Multiplier that changes the amount of stamina gained by dinos when they are tamed as a percentage of the default setting, depending on taming effectiveness. Okay, affinity is the one where this has to do with the bonus. I don't know. See, this is another set of settings that's kind of weird. The main one I mess with is the dinos add per level. I do this on dinos, and then I do the same thing down here on players. All them other ones I don't really fuck with, to be honest. Because if you if you override the difficulty, I'm gonna find that setting here in a minute, and we'll talk about that. Player stats per level. Yeah. I mean, so you got this. This is player stats per level. This is the one where, you know, if you get 10 points for health, then if you make this 5, you get 50 points for every level you put into health. You know, and it makes it to where you can put a lot, obviously you can have a lot higher stats on your character, and it also makes it where you don't have to spend as much points on shit that you did before that you may not have really wanted to. So, you want a high weight character, you can put this on 10 times and put 10 points into him, and he's got 1,000 weight, you know, with 10 points. And then all those other points you can put wherever else you want. Here's your experience multipliers. This is your generic experience multiplier. This is just how much experience is gained just standing there. You know, your experience ticks up real slow just sitting there or standing there. This affects the speed of that. This is how much experience you get. This affects how much you get for killing stuff. This is how much you get for harvesting, for crafting, and special. What is special? Multiplier that influences how much experience is gained under certain circumstances. Maybe that's when you tame something, or ascend, or beat a boss, or kill an alpha, or something like that. I don't know. Max players and tribes, pretty explanatory. If you've got more than one tribe on your server, then this you can set a limit that if you want to. 0 means no limit. Player max experience points. I wouldn't mess with this. I damn sure wouldn't mess with it. I would only change this before you even get started, because what's going to happen is this is going to fuck your levels up. If you're level 80 something and you start screwing with experience point settings and things like that, that can screw your level up, where if you put it lower, it's going to shoot you up higher in level, possibly, or if you put the max above what the default is, then it's going to lower your level, and you could really screw your game up doing that. Dino max experience points, same thing, I just leave it alone. Flyer platform unaligned basing. If checked, dinosaurs not on a flyer's team can stand on the flyer platform, otherwise they slide off. Oh, okay, so this just means if you do that, then you can basically carry dinos with your dino. Otherwise, they just fucking slide off. You can put them on a platform saddle, which, you know, that's handy. So I would have that on. Passive defense hurts riderless dinos. If checked, spike walls will damage wild and riderless dinos. That's personal preference. I mean, on PvP, I use the spike walls early on, but usually I have walls, so I mean, this doesn't. I would have this on PvP. On PvE, it's debatable. I mean, I don't know. It just depends on the situation. Again, what do you want it to do? Only allow specified engrams. That's exactly what it means. You can set up on the next tab, this engrams tab, which ones you want to allow, and then if you check that, then that's what makes it so that's all they can have. Show floating text damage. If you're playing PvE, I use this. This is where the numbers pop up when you do damage to something or something does damage to you. It's kind of handy to know when you start finding upgraded blueprints and things like that, and you can actually see the difference in damage. And when you rank your melee up, you can see the difference in damage you get, you know, and if there's a certain number, or you just want to see it. I don't know. I think it's a cool setting to have on if you're on PvE. I would not recommend having this on PvP, and the reason why is because say you're in some trees and you've got something trapped and you're taming it, you're knocking it out. Well, every time you shoot it, those big fucking green numbers shoot up, and anybody from another tribe flying by can see those numbers where they may not even have been able to see you. Then boom, it's like a big beacon saying, here I am, come take my tame from me, or come kill me. So I would leave that off on PvP. PvE, I'd leave it on all day long. Allow custom recipes? Absolutely. You can make custom recipes in the cooking pot or the industrial cooker. I'd leave that on PvE or PvP. The people that want to put the effort into making them, why not let them, I think. Allow dino raid feeding, or raid dino feeding. No. This is mainly for the Titanosaur. The Titanosaur is only supposed to be alive for like 16 to 24 hours, I think, and then because you can't feed it, it starves to death. So if you have this check, that allows people to tame Titanosaurs and keep them forever. Now, PvE, maybe, but I wouldn't, I don't know, I've never tamed a Titanosaur, and I don't think I'd bother. The only time I'd want to do it would be on PvP, and it's just such a pain in the ass, I wouldn't even want to do it then. So, it just depends. Are you going to be taming a lot of Titanosaurs? Is it PvE or PvP? Then that's kind of what would decide that one. Raid dino food. This is just settings to the food drain on the Titanosaur. Custom recipe effectiveness. This just higher numbers increase the effectiveness of your custom recipes if you make them. If you check this. Custom recipe skill factor. The effect of the player's character's crafting speed level, blah blah blah. So all this does is you just want to raise, if you want the effectiveness or the quality of what you custom craft in your recipes. If you want the recipes to get more because of your crafting speed and stuff, then you can raise these. And you get a crafting skill bonus multiplier. Multiplier that influences the quality level of crafted items based on the players. So when you craft something, you could actually raise this setting and then not have to raise the stats per level on your crafting stat for your player. And then that's more points you could save towards something else. Or you could raise this to like 2.0 and then put your crafting speed on, 2 times, and it's basically 4 times regular. It's whatever you want to do. Supply loot crate quality. I usually put this on 2 because everything's usually pretty shit anyway, and it's still not amazing with 2, but it's better. Fuel consumption interval multiplier. I'm telling you right now, don't fuck with this. I was talking about this earlier. This setting I changed on the PvP server that I'm adminning on the other day. And I looked at the other server, the PS4 server, and they had it on 0.5. By default, on the actual server setting, default is 1.313, I think. And that's what it always is. It's normal. Of course, it's never slow enough, but it's not that bad. Well, assuming that it was, I looked at it as it was the fuel consumption speed multiplier, and it's not. It's, in other words, lowering that setting speeds up the interval in between. How, like, if you have gas in there, I just shorten the time between two gases getting used. Okay? And so that wasn't good. So then I thought, well, hell, I'll go back the other way with it. I'll put it on 2.0 and make it last twice as long. Well, which is just a little more, it's 0.6 something more than the regular time. So, and that may still be okay. But I did some reading on it. I would leave this at default, because if you put it too high, then what happens is, I didn't know this, if you're trying to make jerky, for instance, for kibble, I thought that there was just like a built-in timer for the kibble to be made, but it's not. I mean, not the kibble, but the jerky. You know, you take you a preserving bin with some spark powder and oil, and put either raw prime meat or raw, you know, regular meat or whatever, and over a period of time, it starts turning that meat into jerky for your kibble recipes. Well, if you slow down the fuel consumption, you may put it too slow. That's going to make your jerky take longer to make, and it may even prevent you from making jerky altogether, because the jerky isn't its own separate timer that it gets made in the preserving bin. The jerky gets made based off of how many units of fuel are used. So if you slow the time down, you may actually slow the time down between the fuel getting used so long that the damn meat spoils before it ever turns into jerky. So I would leave that one alone. It's not too bad. Increase platform structure limit. Multiplier that influences the limit of structures that can be placed on a platform. Now, this has to do with platform saddles, I think. And I think it also has to do with motorboats or rafts or whatever. You can play with that in PvE, especially. I'd, you know, turn it on 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever and see what it does. I don't think it's gonna, you know, I don't know. I don't think people on PvP would be really building a whole lot of crazy shit on something like that. I wouldn't think. And then, honestly, to me, that's what PvE's for. PvE's all about building, to me. But, and then after that, you got the engrams tab. And this is just the allowed engrams. Everything's lit up by default. You would just go in and select and turn off. Like, if I didn't want people to have sleeping bags, no sleeping bags. You know, which that's not typically what people turn off. What people typically would do would be, they might turn off all the tech engrams at the bottom. You can turn all the tech shit off if you want. You know, if you want a non-tech server or whatever. And that's pretty much it, guys. What else? I'm trying to think. There's nothing else really, you know. And when you go to start your game, you just make sure you, like I said, you select whatever arc you want to go on to, and either play single player or run dedicated server. If you are running a dedicated server on an Xbox with another Xbox, you have to do these settings and hit run dedicated server on the Xbox that you're not going to be playing on. You have to have 2 Xboxes, and one of them has to be just there to host the server. It's way better than doing it where you just go single player and have somebody join, because on the dedicated server you don't have to have the tether limit. You can, somebody can be on, and, you know, if you do the single player thing, for one thing, whoever's running the single player, they have to be on. You can't play if they're not on. So that sucks, and there's the tether limit. So if if the person runs a dedicated server, you can still get on whenever they want. It aren't even on. It's just like a rented server or an official server, and there's no tether limit. So anyway, guys, that is host non-dedicated session. That would be the one where you get on your Xbox, start a game, and then people join you, but there's the tether limit. I forgot they had. I thought it was just single player and then they can join. But anyway, guys, this video's gone on way too long. There's a lot of settings to go through, and I know a lot of them are can be confusing. I hope I explained them. If I didn't go into enough detail on certain ones, please let me know in the comments, and I'll explain them in the comments. I mean, it's a lot of them are kind of self-explanatory, but some of them are they sound to me exactly opposite of what you do with the slider and whatnot. So hopefully I cleared some of that up, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, I will see you guys in the next one. Later.